Welcome to Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Natural Education. First, a definition. Rousseau's definition of natural meant the inherent good he believed we were all born with. Natural education meant preserving that inherent good throughout the education process, preparing the young person to resist the corrupting influence of civilized society when he or she finally entered it. Many times exiled for his ideas, he was welcomed by princes and celebrities everywhere. Unfortunately, his way of being rubbed them the wrong way and he was off to his next location. His constant forced relocations exposed him to many societies and allowed him to observe and develop generalities about politics, social interactions, and education. The big ideas in his philosophy formed the basis for what became natural education, the biggest overriding one being that humans are born inherently good, but are then corrupted and enslaved by civilized society. The need to resist corruption led to his views on how to design education. Before we get into the specifics of Rousseau's 5 stages of development, it's important to note some of the groundbreaking concepts that he either came up with or was an early champion of. He was one of the first to note that children go through different developmental stages and that education should be tailored to fit those stages. He was the first person known to have advocated approaching education from a holistic perspective. Many of his ideals were about building a self-empowered, well-rounded person rather than just disseminating information. He was one of the first to speak to the power of tuning the learning environment to best facilitate the child's ability to internalize the lessons. He was one of the first advocates of experiential learning, learning by doing. This is illustrated in his book Emile, or On Education, in the kite flying scene, where Emile learns the relationship between the kite and its shadow by actually flying a kite and following the shadow across the ground. And he was one of the first to encourage students to not just rely on the authority of the teacher, but to question and use critical thinking skills to come to their own learnings and conclusions. Rousseau broke development into 5 stages, each with a different focus for the teacher and student. First was infancy from birth to 2 years old. During this stage, his quote was, "More liberty and less power. Allow the body its natural habits." From 2 to 12 years old was the age of nature, where no moral or oral instruction took place. This was the time for developing physical qualities, especially the senses, but not the advanced thinking mind. Next up was pre-adolescence from 12 to 15 years and characterized by the noble savage stage where innate goodness still exists and where the focus of education was on mastering a single useful skill, learning how to learn. From 15 to 20 years old was puberty. This stage finds reasoning well developed, and it's finally time to learn religion, morality, and other complex issues while still insulating the person from the corrupting influence of society. Finally, adulthood arrives from 20 to 25 years of age. At this point, the person has been educated in traditional learnings, but also in the strength of character needed to hopefully be able to move into society without allowing it to corrupt him or her. Rousseau believed that the corruption of societies was due to the learned need of being seen a certain way by those outside the self, and that the purpose of natural education was to allow the student to maintain their inherent goodness, holding themselves to only their own standards and needing no approval of others. Rousseau advocated for a number of things that definitely should not be used in the classroom. A couple of these would be teaching religion as a promotion of its beliefs, and especially his belief that women should only be taught with the end result of being able to serve and support men and raise families. Ouch. There are, however, a number of excellent concepts of Rousseau's that are very useful in the classroom. Tailoring education to be age-appropriate is now standard in our system. Using experiential learning is a great way of changing rote memorization into a fun and dynamic activity. A paper slide and a couple of marbles become a pathway to testing and recording things like momentum, gravity, and friction. Bringing a holistic approach to learning has tremendous value. Learning about how machines like cars work is fine, but talking about how the byproducts alter the environment brings a connection not only to the greater world, but also helps the child understand the importance of their place in it. Building the learning environment to support ease of education is another big one. Creating a safe, minimal distraction space with supporting visuals for interest and having proper lighting kickstarts and accelerates the learning process. We should encourage two-way interactions between students and teachers, celebrate critical thinking and questioning of those teachings. Finally, and to me most importantly, find every way possible to teach them that they are enough. They are perfect just the way they are, and they are strong enough to know that they do not need other people's approval to be themselves. This will help them resist peer pressure and lead them to be comfortable in the world, no matter what that world brings them. Rousseau's ideas about teaching were not perfect. He would be the first to tell you that. He did not see On Education as a training manual. It was a philosophy of approach, and since he believed in the possibility of a growing learning society, he would do best to simply take those parts of his philosophy that benefit us and our students and implement them going forward.